In our last video, we made this dude. Terrifying, ugly, but yet beautiful troll monster. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to paint this guy and bring him to life. First things first is that you're going to need some special paint. And the special paint is the special sauce. So this is 1/3 liquid latex, the same kind of latex that you would use for monster mask making. 1/3 water. You can probably do a little bit more than that. And then 1/3 indoor household paint. It has to be indoor. The outdoor stuff has like chemicals and crap in it that you don't want. Get the indoor stuff, all right? And then it's gonna work beautifully. Mix it all together into like a jug. This is just like a cat litter thing that I washed out, and that's what I used. So you'll need liquid latex, the special sauce that we'll be using as the paint. Make sure you got a jug of water, because it's always nice to have some water around, especially when you're painting for your tools and your airbrush and all that. All right, so what we're also going to need is an airbrush, which is, this is just a $30 airbrush, what was it, a Gocher, okay, something like that. I got from Amazon, like 30 bucks, as well as it came with a pretty crappy air compressor that, you know, it pushes out about 25 to 30 psi, which is a little low for this. I'll show you what you can do in order to get this to work properly with this kind of stuff, all right? But I definitely recommend, if you're going airbrush route, you want at least to have a good air compressor, one that pushes around 40 to 60 psi, sometimes higher if you need to like flush out your brush, because it needs that air pressure to push that latex paint through. If you don't have enough, well then it's just gonna clog up and jam your airbrush. But what you can do is you can pour in some extra water when you're mixing the paints, which I will show you how to do, and you want it to make it, you know, pretty liquid. That's what I found works, because I was going to use my good air compressor that I have, but sadly it broke down before I could do this. So we did use this little thing, okay, which it worked. Don't get me wrong, it worked, but there's some struggles, right? So make sure you have a good air compressor. But if you don't have an airbrush, you can't afford one, well, don't fret, because you can also use good old just brushes. Brushes work great, you know, classic. Some people prefer to use brushes other than airbrushing. You know, they work just as well. This is from the dollar store. You don't need fancy brushes to do this, honestly. As well as some cups, mixing cups for your water, for your paint. Dollar store again. In Italian, man, you go to the dollar store, you're gonna find a lot of this stuff, right? Cups, as well as, you know, got some cheap acrylic paints, also from the dollar store. You're gonna mix this with the liquid latex and make your own kind of colors, right? To paint onto your mask. So you can use those. For the airbrushing though, I did find that buying some airbrush paints, again, Amazon airbrush paints, this was like 40 bucks and you get like all those colors, which is crazy. What I found with airbrush paints when mixing with the special sauce is that I think the pigments are a lot stronger, and since they're for airbrushes, they are more watery, right? Because when you're mixing with these, especially if you have like a low air compressor, it can get a little bit thick and you gotta use more water to water it all down, right? So with these, the pigments are high, right? It's already watered down pretty good, and it's just, it seems to flow easier through the airbrush when it's mixed. You also need some acrylic inks and some isopropyl alcohol to do a wash. We'll spray on this wash, darken all the creases and areas, and then we'll rub it off with some alcohol. And we want to rub off so all the high spots. So we'll just leave the dark spots and the creases, and it'll really make the mask pop. Recommend getting 70% isopropyl alcohol for this, especially if you're making acrylic ink washes. It works the best. Going to need some 5-minute epoxy. This is from the dollar store as well. This will be used for the eyes, you know. Mix some of this up, paint it onto the eyes, and it's going to make the eyes look like they're wet. Next, you will need Liquitex acrylic mediums, a gloss medium, right there. You can see that, right? This will be for like the teeth and the gums to make them like look all wet. And the reason we use this stuff and not the 5-minute epoxy is because this has some stretch to it. So if you're handling the mask around the mouth, and if you're putting it on, it's gonna have some stretch. The eyes are usually always there, so you don't really have to worry about the epoxy cracking or anything like that. If you were to use the epoxy for the mouth and all that, you have a higher risk of it cracking off. And the next stuff you don't need this stuff, but I definitely like it. It's regular gel gloss, and you're gonna need some red food coloring, which will make some blood. This stuff dries pretty hard, so if you're making a mask that's going to be more of a prop instead of wearing it, then you can slap this on with mixing this into it, and it makes a really cool, really realistic blood effect, which is pretty neat. And last thing, some gloves, some nitro gloves. You know, some of this stuff, especially like the gloss stuff, can be a little sticky and nasty, or the epoxy. You definitely want to wear gloves when you're mixing epoxy up. So that's all the materials. So let's get to painting. Yes, this is the fun part, bringing your creation to life with, well, painting it. I like to have very poppy colors. I love colorful creatures as masks. I'm not a big fan of like browns and just saturated kind of monsters. You see a lot of that in horror movies today. But for this troll, we're going green. All right, using green, oranges, reds, purples, and then I can't remember what else, but I'll let you know as we go along here. So for the base coat, we're using a very translucent light green. I think it's like a forest green. All you do is you pour a little bit of that liquid latex mixture into a cup, then add your colors, and you water it down almost like skim milk. It's runny, so that I can get through, the airbrush here. Once we get down that base color, we're gonna get a brush, mix up some darker green, and now this can be a little bit thicker, and we're gonna do a little bit of a modeling effect. So dip a brush in the paint, and we're just gonna kind of flick the paint onto the mask. This is gonna give it some depth. When you look at your skin, you can see these little blotches of different colors, especially on older people. So that's kind of what we're doing. So don't be scared that if it's like too much, because you will be adding more paint over this, so it'll show through, but it won't be like overbearing. Mixing up some yellow. Again, this is going to be very watered down, translucent, and we're just trying to build up layers of color here. We don't want to completely wash away the colors we add, but like the green here, we're kind of washing away a little bit, but it's still popping through. And then later on we'll come through and add more green. It's like a layering, pretty much. Think of it like each color you're putting on a different skin over top with color. So with the yellow, we're going into like the cracks, into like the creases, and then we spray it all around. We want to put that color all over the mask, not just in like around the ears and the eyes. We want it to be all over. Mix up some orange here, and we're gonna spray it into the cracks again, trying to mix in those greens and the yellows. It's all subtle painting right now, and later on we're gonna come back with some darker colors and mix it all together and just really make this thing kind of pop. But I want to lay the yellow down and the orange where I think the most fat would be on this guy, which he's pretty chunky, right? Look at him, he's a pretty chunky guy. So that's what my mind's going through right now. Now, for a lot of my characters, I'm thinking in ZBrush or digital sculpting. When I paint in my 3D software, I love to have my characters have like these really dark eyes, like maybe they've been out all night hunting and they're really tired, or maybe they're just angry. So I mix up some like browny red pink here, go around the eyes, and then I use that same color to hit those big old nodules, kind of like moly bumps on his skin. Of course, we'll come back and add more color to that, and then we spray that color all over the mask a little bit, just give it a little bit more depth, give it a hint of that color. Like I said, you don't want to spray the one color in one spot. You want to kind of have all these colors kind of everywhere. Of course, you're going to have more colors in one spot than the other, but it's all going to kind of mix together and create a really interesting skin tone. Mixing up some green here. I'm going to come back and kind of punch that green back in. It's very light, it's very subtle. And if I remember correctly, I do make this color a little bit darker because this green was just too soft for my liking. I kind of wanted to make, like a green troll. Very, well, I guess you could say like a Shrek green. So I darken up the green here, as you can see. And we're going to really punch in this green. Just be careful not to wash out all the other colors you've added, or else all those other colors you've added, it was just a waste of time. It's not going to look good. But, you want to bring back in your main color, pretty much your main skin tone for your monster. He's becoming very green, and I'm starting to like where this is going. He's just not looking tired enough for me, and we're losing some color around the eyes and in his like big moles around his face. So bring that red brown back, hit that in. We mix up some new red here. It's gonna be very pink, so which is fine. We add a little bit more red to darken it, but still it's looking like Pepto-Bismol. But that's okay because again, we're layering here, right? We want to spray this into around the eyes and then into the ears as well. When you look at ears, they're almost like see-through, and you can see like the blood in the people's ears. By people, I mean every person, pretty much. And yeah, so make sure you get the back of the ears as well. We're gonna mix up a new color here using white and a little bit of pink. This is gonna be for the gums. Now this is really light. This light pink for the gums, and then that other red that I mixed that we just did. It's gonna go very well. It's gonna complement each other really well. So we let that dry a little bit, and then we get that red, bring it back into the gums, and it's gonna create this really cool gum color for the mouth. And look at all that. Those beautiful, delicious pinky gums. Getting darker and darker. It's all about layering. It's all about subtlety. And as you build up more layers, you get a little bit darker. I ended up making a darker red, and then we punched it into the eyes and the tongue there. And it's pretty much all we did. It's a big jump, it looks like it, but we're getting into the darker colors now. Now what we did with the green, with the mottling, we're going to do the same thing with this yellow. So mix up some yellow, and we're going to kind of just flick the paint on again, right? We want this to be kind of between layers of paint. It's all about the depth. You can still see that green, but it's not as crazy green because of all the other colors we've added on top. This is where I started using those airbrush paints, and I gotta say it worked way better. Of course, the pigments are a lot brighter, which is fine because we're starting to get into the darker colors, making those colors really aggressive, I should say. So I mix up this orange, and I'm just applying it into the creases, well, his fat folds, I should say, in and around the mouth, and then of course in the top there, and just a little bit all over. Because when we come back with like the reds, that orange and the red is going to look really nice together. Since the color of the blood that this troll has is red, we want to add this red into kind of like the cut in the gash that I've made on the left side here where I'm painting, and then we want to blend it into the cheeks as well, where where the blood flow pretty much is on this dude, because he's pretty fat, so you wouldn't really be able to see too much blood flow in his fatness, right? But like in his like cheeks and all that, around the eyes and the ears, kind of want to hit the red a little bit more aggressive in those areas. Mixing up a brighter pink, we hit the gums again. They just weren't pink enough for my liking, so I really want to make them a little bit more pink, a little bit more colorful. And this pink is really bright. We come back with that red, and we apply it over the pink where that gash is. Again, we're adding more layers. And we mix up a darker red as well and apply it over to, build up more depth and trying to make it look a little bit more bloody. We want to separate that left side from the gums so it looks more gross and gnarly. Here we mix up yellow and green, and this is going to be for his lips. Now, we don't want it too crazy. We kind of want it like close to the same skin color, but you can get away with like different color lips if you want to. Make this lips pop a little bit more. His big old juicy lips. And yes, that is purple. At some point, I knew I wanted to do a skin pattern for this dude. And when I picture the full body character of this troll, he has purple on him. He has purple marks. The purple fades into the greens. It could be like a birthmark on his head or around his body. Maybe it's just his skin tone in general, right? He's got purples and it fades into greens. And we're gonna paint this purple, make it like a little bit of a pattern coming down from the top of his dome there, down to his eyes, and then we're gonna paint all around the edges of the mask as well, as you see here, and we're gonna bring that purple up a little bit underneath the chin. This is all about having fun, so don't be afraid to take risks. Try something different. With my airbrush, using that same purple, we're gonna do kind of little peppercorns all around the skin, kind of break up that green texture a bit more. Little freckles, yeah. And then with the white, we're gonna just use the basic white of the latex paint in the airbrush, brush it into the eyes, or airbrush it into the eyes. If you spill paint on your mask like I did just now, be quick, get some water and just spray it off and wipe it off, and you're all good to go. Do not worry. Now with a paintbrush, instead of using the airbrush, I want to be very careful with the teeth. So I'm just using paintbrush to brush on, the white of the teeth. It's just the base color. We're gonna do the, what do you call these? The tusks. And then we're gonna do the teeth as well. Painting in the eyes a little bit more, need a little bit more white there. And then we come back to the teeth and add in that white color. This monster cannot have perfectly white teeth. No one has perfectly white teeth. Alright, especially monsters. So we mix up like a really light kind of gross yellow, and we just apply it to the teeth. He's gonna have these yellowy gross teeth. You can thin it down a little bit as well, and this is just a heat gun to dry the paint faster. If there's one area you want to take your time with, it's the eyes. So spend as much time as you need just on these eyes alone. For myself, I'm just using a paintbrush. You gotta have a steady hand. My airbrush is being stupid. You can do it with the airbrush as well, but my airbrush was being stupid, so I just decided to use these paintbrushes. So I went with the brown eye color, kind of make like a semicircle, and then we painted in that brown there. And then I'm gonna mix up some lighter browns, and then also using white. We're gonna use a thinner brush, and we're gonna kind of make like these crisscrosses in the iris itself, because when you look at eyes, you can kind of see like a color shift in them. That's why I'm bringing the mask closer. You gotta get like right in there. As you can see, doing like these little crisscrosses with the lighter brown, some white, and then right in the middle. Kind of looks like poo color, to be honest with you. Gross. I didn't. Anyways, we'll come back to the eye with a black, and we're gonna outline the brown circle that we did, the iris. Like right here. I kind of fuck up the eye a little bit, but that's okay. It's whatever, right? So we outline it in black. Perla brings that eye to life, and then we're gonna paint in the pupil just like that. And then we do a little bit of touch-ups with the colors that we have, if there's like any white that may have sprayed over. Now it's time for one of my favorite parts, the ink wash. You're gonna use your isopropyl alcohol. You're gonna mix in your black ink. You can put a bit of green in there if you want, or whatever color you want, honestly. And you're just gonna spray that all over your mask, darkening it up, Make sure it gets into all the creases, all the fat. Then, once it dries a little bit, take your sponge with isopropyl alcohol soaked in it, and you're just gonna wipe it off. Just wipe off the high points. Do not wipe off where it gets into the creases. Now, I want it a bit darker, so I'll go over it again. You can go over it as many times as you want. So, you just want to make sure it gets into all those, all the folds, all the detail, right? And then you take your sponge and you wipe off the high points. and it really makes like the mask like pop. It makes it look so much better because you get all that detail popping out at you, and it's just beautiful. Then we take that gloss medium, the Liquitex, and we brush it all over the gums, just with a paintbrush. Get on the tusks, the teeth, the gums. Then we get a disposable brush with that 5-minute epoxy. Mix that up, brush it onto the eyes, let it cure, and it looks like your dude has, well, very wet eyes. Oh yeah, one more step before we get to the fake blood is I mixed up some of that gloss medium with water, and I spray it all over him. And this really brings like a subtle effect to the skin. Makes it like look a little bit, not too wet because it's watered down, but it just makes it look more like skin to me. And you just spray it on and brush it and then let it dry. I just found this out on my own when I did my last creature. With that gel, we mix in the red food color in, and we just spread it where you want blood. Of course, it's gonna be in his cut, and then maybe he ate somebody. Maybe somebody was under his bridge when they shouldn't have been, and he snacked on them. I may have put too much blood on him, but that's okay. I like a lot of blood. And there we have it. The troll is all finished, and this is what it looks like when it's all dried. See, the epoxy worked really good with the eyes, making them look wet. That fake blood. I may have put too much fake blood on this, but I was having a little bit more fun. He got real hungry right there. And also, you could probably use this dude as a hand puppet if you wanted to. You got some delicious children for me. I hope this video helps you with painting your own monster mask. And if you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment down below. Be happy to answer them for you. Oh, and one other thing. If you want, you can put some foam in the back here, just so you can hang it on your wall, back on a little nail or whatever, and you can display it just like that. And it doesn't get deformed, because if you didn't have that foam reinforcement there, then it'd kind of sag and look a little weird. But you could do that, or if you wanted to, you could also get some foam fillet as well, and it'll keep its shape pretty much forever, and it won't sag or distort on you as the years go by. But anyways, go out there and paint your own monster masks, and I hope to see you in the next video.